One morning, Akihito is in his classroom feeling confident about the mediocre year ahead. All he needs to complete it is an ordinary teacher. Suddenly, the door moves and Hiyori, his homeroom teacher, enters with blood dripping from her forehead. Akihito and his classmates all look at her with concern. Because of this incident, rumors begin to spread that she can curse students. They nickname her the Kowakowa teacher because of that. One student even claims to have seen her notebook filled with talismans, and another claims to have heard her muttering curses to herself. Akihito ends the day feeling uneasy about having such a scary teacher. As he is about to leave the school, he spots Hiyori inside an empty classroom reciting odd lines. He keeps himself hidden as he observes Hiyori telling the stuffed animals on the desks that she will begin class now. He thinks Hiyori is using the dolls as practice dummies to cast curses on. However, to his surprise, she really just starts acting as if she were an ordinary teacher, pretending to go back and forth with her stuffed toys. Akihito is baffled by the sight since he had assumed she was going to perform a curse. Somewhere in the middle of her practice session, she realizes that her voice is too soft, so she begins rubbing her belly and doing breathing exercises. But then she starts unbuttoning her top so she can feel her stomach expand better. However, the more Akihito observes, the more it seems she is doing a different kind of breathing exercise, not the one meant for vocal practice. She also gets tired from breathing alone, leaving her flustered. Akihito finds himself getting flustered as well since she looks adorable. Hiyori starts sitting down, but Akihito suddenly runs toward her because she is about to fall after moving the chair earlier. This ends with Akihito breaking her fall. Once she is decent, Hiyori explains to Akihito that she gets stage fright and is clumsy, but she has always dreamed of becoming a teacher. She is self-aware of her weakness, so after becoming a homeroom teacher, she decided to work harder by practicing. She eventually explains that she tripped earlier that morning and hit her head, which shocked everyone in class. Akihito then realizes that was why she was bleeding earlier. He then pulls out her notebook to check her schedule, and Akihito notices that the talismans the students saw are actually just her notes written on sticky paper. One of the papers falls and she accidentally trips on it. She mutters an apology and Akihito notices that she jumbles her words, making them sound like a curse. He realizes that the nickname Kowakowa does not suit her, but Yowa seems more appropriate. He decides not to involve himself too much and begins moving out of the classroom. Hiyori thanks him by clinging to his arm so he can hear her properly. The action makes him blush and realize that he has fallen for Hiyori. On another occasion, while cleaning the school, Akihito spots Hiyori exercising in the courtyard. He notices she is wearing a school jersey, but it looks too tight on her. He then realizes it might have been her high school tracksuit. To hype herself up, she loudly announces that she will now begin special training and pulls out a jump rope. When she begins, she ends up hitting herself with the rope by accident. In the end, she cannot get a single jump in and just ends up in a tangled mess. She decides to take a break, but then trips because of the skipping rope wrapped around her feet. Akihito dives forward to catch her, but the sudden movement causes part of the jumpsuit to unzip, leaving Hiyori in a flustered state. Later, she explains that her school is having a jump rope competition in October, and she does not want to disappoint her class, so she's been training on her own. Akihito thinks it is too early since it is only April, but he suggests that she should start with basic strength training first. She explains that she tried that before, but her neighbors complained because she kept making strange noises while exercising. Akihito assumes it is the weird, curse-like muttering that the neighbors heard. Yuri suddenly suggests that Akihito help her, and before he realizes it, he finds himself assisting her with sit-ups. However, Yuri struggles to sit up and make strange noises while exercising. Akihito finds himself getting flustered and begins thinking of topics to talk about so he can distract himself. He ends up awkwardly asking her what her ideal type is. Hiyori misinterprets the question and ends up answering what kind of teacher she wants to become. As he listens, Akihito cannot help but feel like she is striving to be the complete opposite of her current self. He watches her closely and finally understands the strange noises the neighbors were complaining about. On a rainy day, Akihito thinks about how the school views Hiyori as a scary teacher. He remembers seeing a student run away from her after noticing that she had written someone's name several times in her notebook. He did not know how to explain that it was Hiyori's unusual way of memorizing names. He enters a bookstore and notices Hiyori reading a book, so he quickly hides himself to observe her from a distance. He notices that she is crying and tries to get a closer look at the page she is reading, but it turns out she is only reading the author's note. To his surprise, she places the book into her basket, and he notices that she has chosen several self-help titles. The sight makes him feel a little sorry for her. When she gets in line at the counter, she begins fumbling with her wallet, making Akihito think she might have forgotten to check how much money she has left. When her eyes begin to tremble, Akihito starts to worry that she might be struggling financially. However, after a moment, she suddenly brightens up, making him feel relieved that she has enough money. When she finally reaches the counter, the cashier tells her that she needs another 5 yen to purchase a bag, which immediately makes Hiyori tear up. Akihito watches in silence, realizing that Hiyori only has enough money for the books themselves. Because she does not have enough, she decides to take the books without a bag, making Akihito instantly worry about how she will get home in the rain. Before she leaves, he decides to purchase a plastic bag for her. However, when he calls out to her, she accidentally slips and ends up falling forward, landing against his chest. He becomes awkward due to the sudden contact, but he still manages to offer the plastic bag to her. As soon as she carefully places the books inside the bag, a car passes by them, and water from a nearby puddle splashes onto both of them. Despite being completely drenched in water, Hiyori feels relieved and happy since her books are safely secured in the plastic bag. She removes her coat without realizing that her clothes have become see-through, forcing Akihito to be the one to point it out to her. One morning, Hiyori ends up running to school but stops briefly to greet Akihito along the way. He immediately notices that she did not button her outfit properly. Hiyori hurriedly explains that she overslept that day but needs to arrive early since homeroom is her first class and she is not finished preparing yet. As she rushes ahead, Akihito misses the chance to warn her about the missing button. He then spots her trying to greet another student, but the student becomes frightened and runs away. Akihito begins to worry about how she will handle the rest of the day since it is already starting off badly. Just as he predicted, at the start of homeroom, the entire class ends up intimidated by Hiyori's disheveled appearance and her nervous, strange muttering. He watches her and notices that her handwriting on the board looks wobbly, which instantly scares everyone in class. He also notices that her face looks flushed and tired, giving him the impression that she is still exhausted from running to school that morning. Hiyori accidentally bumps into a desk, causing a box cutter to fall onto the floor. When she bends down to pick it up, her thighs end up getting stuck against the desk. To the students, it looks like she is preparing to harm someone with the cutter. However, Akihito knows that she does not even have the ability to hurt a fly, so he is certain there must be a reasonable explanation for why she is still on the ground. He decides to distract everyone by suddenly announcing that he wants to be the class president. He steps forwards in the front of the classroom while quietly agonizing over his decision, since he had originally hoped to remain an ordinary student and avoid standing out. When he glances back at Hiyori, he notices that her tights are caught on a loose nail by the desk. She quietly begs him to help her. His eyes drift to the rest of her, and he notices that some articles of clothing are missing. Hiyori embarrassingly admits that she overslept and forgot to put them on. He panics, unsure of how to deal with the situation. Helping her might draw attention, but after Hiyori begs again, he decides to carefully unhook her tights from the nail. The sudden movement causes the material to snap free, hitting her in the process. To cover it up, she quickly stands up and announces that she will continue homeroom. After class, as Akihito cleans the board, a student teasingly calls him president, making him feel immediate regret for volunteering. He tries to convince himself that he only did it to help Hiyori. As he returns to his seat, he notices a note on top of his desk. He thinks it is a death threat, but it turns out to be from Hiyori, asking him to meet her after class to discuss his responsibilities. Later, Hiyori speaks to him using a megaphone so that she can be heard clearly. Akihito questions it, and she explains that her attention was called earlier by another teacher. They were concerned that she might not be able to teach properly due to her soft voice, which led her to the idea of using a megaphone. To demonstrate, she tries speaking through it, but her words still come out jumbled. Akihito tries to encourage her, saying that people are likely only scared of her because they cannot understand what she is saying. Hiyori pales, apparently unaware of how she has been perceived by the students this whole time. She then realizes that it must be the reason why no student has ever looked her directly in the eyes. Suddenly, she notices that Akihito is not scared of her at all, which feels strange to her since he was never particularly assertive before. Yet now he is speaking to her normally and even volunteered to become class president. She feels inspired by his ability to change because she thinks he is doing it for self-improvement. Akihito suggests that it might be better for her to practice speaking more slowly and enunciating her words clearly. Hiyori then tries repeating tongue twisters while using the megaphone. When he confirms that she sounds better, she moves to the front and repeats the tongue twister again to check if Akihito can hear her from the back. She becomes delighted when Akihito confirms once more and begins to feel confident that her students might not be afraid of her anymore. She asks if her feelings are reaching him, and Akihito says yes, though he cannot help but feel like they are inside a strange dramatic scene. When she thanks him, he feels his heart race, confirming to himself that he has truly fallen for her. She continues thanking him, but in the process, the megaphone slips out of her hands. Akihito panics, believing it to be important for her growth, so he dives to catch it. However, Hiyori also moves at the same time, causing him to end up underneath her as they both try to grab it. As he speaks to check if she is okay, he accidentally presses against the megaphone, causing it to vibrate and making Hiyori react in surprise. Eventually, they begin walking through the halls, and Akihito tells her that they can always discuss class responsibilities another time. Hiyori beams at him, believing that he is also working hard to improve himself. In truth, he's only doing all of this to support her. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to see what happens next.